So, being English, most of us either tolerate or like the monarchy. There are, of course, a few Republicans which want to behead them, but that's besides the point. Recently, I went to see a play called Charles III. This is my spoiler-free, mostly, review and opinions about the monarchy in general. So, this is not really a spoiler, but if you want to skip over this anyway to avoid anything at all, feel free. In fact, I just wouldn't listen to this at all because there will be a minor spoiler for the premise of the play. So the blurb that you see on the website and in general theatres that you get for this play is that the Queen has died and now Charles is the king. And it's how he deals with that. So as you can probably guess, and you've seen it in interviews leading up to it, there is a minor debate with the government and Charles over how to rule. And the whole play is very much about how different people think the country should be run and the way that England should go in general if the Queen was to die. Now, I'm not really going to be talking about this, the plot of the play, much, because I don't want to spoil it. It is very good and it is very much worth seeing. Some of the main fears I had about the play was that it would do what most people tend to do in the UK when writing stories about government and monarchy and make it a good versus evil issue, like the left is usually painted as very good whereas the right is painted as very evil. Whereas this play was very good in not doing that, and it just expressed everyone's views as right in their own way, but just a very extreme or different way of running the country. Everybody had very different views about this one particular point of contention, and it was about how there was no real middle ground that any of them came up with. They were all very different and very well expressed and very correct in their own way. And it just brings up a very relevant point about how nowadays the monarchy doesn't seem to do anything with Elizabeth besides just sign off on laws. And it's this whole thing about how the monarchy is viewed as ceremonial, but legally they still have power that they just never exercise. They very much leave it up to the populace and parliament and who's democratically elected to run the country, whether that's good or bad or whether they agree with it or not. Something that I did quite enjoy is that they did get most of the characters of the royal family right. And they also represented the parties very well, which was something I thought was quite clever. Because the way they did it was that the left was, like Labour, was trying to very much use laws to craft a better society, but at the same time it would limit your freedom of speech. Whereas the Conservatives, which this is true as well, are very much in favour of free speech when it suits their business interests. And this is a big thing about the whole play, about how the political parties play off against each other and how the monarchy plays off against the public. And even just from the standpoint of play production, the whole thing was fantastic. The music was done very well. There was minor special effects which were also done very well. And just the general way they did the music combined with how people were talking at the same time, it was very cinematic in places in combination with the lighting. And it was just wonderful. It was just a really good production. Everybody acted very well, except for one girl who I was pointed out by my girlfriend doesn't know how to project. She was just shouting her lines. And the way that they had so many different plots focusing on so many different members of the royal family and the way that they are perceived by the public and the press and how they want themselves to be, it was just a very multi-layered play. And even though the political commentary itself was quite surfaced, the whole thing was very deep in the way that it actually made you think about things instead of just telling you that this was a good or a bad idea. And it does raise a very good question over what Charles is going to do when we eventually see the Queen die. Now, I don't know whether Charles will go down the same route as the Queen, where she just signed off on laws, or whether he will try and influence laws and exercise his powers as the monarch to try and shape the country into how he sees it. Because with the Prince's Trust and various other charity work that he does, it seems that he is very much a little bit more active than just a figurehead of the state in general. And I think when the Queen does die, God save the Queen and all that, it's going to be a very interesting time for the world and the UK in particular. And I am genuinely curious now that I've seen this, and it's got me thinking over what Charles is going to do as a monarch. And I haven't paid enough attention to them to actually know. But yeah, it's very good, and if you can somehow see it, I would recommend doing so. But seeing as this is a tour up and down the country, you may have missed your city's dates, or hopefully they film it and release it, because it is very good. Just if you have the chance and you live in the UK, I would go see it. If you enjoyed the video and want to see more random reviews of plays I've seen, or just me chatting about random bollocks, then subscribe. If you really enjoyed this, then please leave a like. If you thought I got the completely wrong end of the stick, leave a dislike. Toodaloo, and long live the king or queen or whoever's next. Ba-dum.